So, when you think of the book of Exodus, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably Charlton Heston, right? The parting of the Red Sea, this huge, dramatic escape from slavery. But what if I told you that's just the movie trailer? That the real story, the one hidden in the original Hebrew, is about something so much deeper. Okay, let's really get into this.
This right here is the big idea we're going to unpack. See, the story isn't just about leaving Egypt. It's about arriving at a whole new identity, entering into this formal, binding relationship, and really understanding what freedom is for. And trust me, that shift in perspective changes everything.
And this whole shift, it actually starts with the title of the book itself. The name we all use, Exodus, it sets us up to expect one thing, but that's not what it was originally called.
When we hear Exodus, our brain immediately goes to escape, right? Running out, getting away from danger. But the original Hebrew title frames the entire story completely differently. It's not really about what the people are running from, but who they're in the process of becoming.
The original Hebrew name for the book is Shemot, and Shemot means names. Now this is so important. The book literally kicks off by listing the names and the family lines of the tribes of Israel. So why do that? Well, because you can't be delivered from bondage until you first remember who you are. The story starts with identity.
And that's the real conflict brewing at the beginning of the book. It isn't just about physical slavery, it's a deep, deep crisis of identity for the entire nation of Israel and, as we'll see, for the man chosen to lead them.
It all starts with this one verse. Now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph. Now, when we read that, we just think, okay, he was uninformed, he didn't get the memo. But the Hebrew word for know here is yada. And yada isn't just about facts, it's about a deep, intimate, relational understanding. So this wasn't ignorance, this was a willful, hostile rejection of the entire history and the blessing that Joseph had been to Egypt.
And this identity crisis then explodes onto the scene with Moses himself. When God calls to him from the burning bush, this is his first response. We usually read this and think, oh, what humility. But the original language suggests something way more profound is going on here.
Here's the thing, Moses wasn't just being humble. This was the raw cry of a man with a shattered identity. I mean, think about it. He was once a prince of Egypt. He lost all of it, his status, his people, his purpose. He basically saw himself as a total nobody. God had to heal his private identity before he could ever use him on the public stage.
And how God responds, well, it reveals everything about his nature. That whole burning bush scene isn't just some weird miracle. It's a powerful statement about the kind of God who's about to step in.
You have to look at the specific language God uses. He doesn't just say, I've seen their suffering. The Hebrew is, seeing I have seen. It's a double verb, which in Hebrew is a way of screaming emphasis. It's packed with intense emotional involvement. And when he calls out Moses, Moses, that repetition isn't just to get his attention. In the Bible, when a name is repeated like that, it signals a divine, destiny-shaping moment.
And then, God gives his name. We all know it as I am who I am, which sounds like this big, static, philosophical title. But in Hebrew, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh is in the future tense. It's a dynamic promise. It's better translated as I will be what I will be, or even I will become whatever my people need me to be. This isn't some abstract idea. It's a binding covenant promise that God will show up in the future in whatever way his people need.
Okay, so with identity getting sorted out and God's powerful promise on the table, the story of liberation finally kicks off. But even here, the events we think we know so well have a much, much deeper purpose. And it all starts with the very definition of freedom.
We always remember the first part of that command, don't we? Let my people go. But we chop the sentence in half. The whole purpose of their freedom is right there in the second part, that they may worship me. See, freedom was never the end goal. It was the means to an end. Deliverance without worship, without belonging to God, well, that just leads to another kind of slavery.
So, what about the plagues? Were they just a series of, random, terrifying punishments meant to scare Pharaoh into submission? Not at all. There was a very specific, very systematic logic at work here.
Get this, each plague was a direct, targeted assault on a specific Egyptian deity. The plague of blood, that was a judgment on Hapi, the god of the Nile. The plague of total darkness, that was a takedown of Ra, the mighty sun god. This wasn't random destruction. This was a divine courtroom where Yahweh was systematically dismantling Egypt's entire religious and political system, proving that he alone was God. You know, even the word Passover, or Pesach in Hebrew, is so often misunderstood. We have this image of the angel of death passing by or skipping the Hebrew houses. But the word Pesach actually means to hover over, to cover, or to shield. Just imagine a mother bird protecting its young with its wings. This was an act of active, divine protection. God was standing guard.
This all comes to a head at the Red Sea, and our mental image is a desperate, last-minute escape, total chaos. But that's not what the text says. Moses tells the people, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. You don't tell terrified people who are running for their lives to stand still. This wasn't an escape, it was a planned moment of judgment. The Red Sea was a courtroom where God would finally execute justice on their oppressors, while his people just stood and watched.
So, after this incredible act of deliverance, what's next? The journey's not over. In fact, you could say the main point of the journey is just about to begin, creating a formal, lasting relationship with God.
We tend to see the giving of the law at Mount Sinai as God just handing down a list of harsh, impossible rules. But in its ancient context, this was a wedding ceremony. Sinai was the wedding mountain, the Torah was the marriage contract, the ketubah. And when the people agree, they're basically giving the ancient equivalent of saying, I do.
And then the final massive section of Exodus is all about the tabernacle. It's so easy to just skip these chapters thinking it's just a bunch of details about a religious tent, but it was so much more. It was designed to be a portable Garden of Eden, a tiny model of the heavenly realm. It was literally the place where heaven and earth would overlap, allowing God to dwell right in the middle of his people. So, after peeling back all these layers, what's the big takeaway? Why does reframing this ancient story actually matter for us today? Well, the story of Exodus completely shifts from being a simple escape story to a profound journey of identity. It moves from being about freedom to just wander to being about freedom to worship. It transforms how we see God's law from a set of restrictive rules to the very foundation of a deep relationship. And ultimately, it shows us a God who isn't distant and far off, but one who desperately wants to be present with his people.
And that brings us right back to God's name. Remember, it wasn't a static title, but a dynamic promise. I will become whatever you need me to be. That ancient promise transforms Exodus from just a historical account into a timeless, living message. So the final question this incredible story leaves us with is a really personal one. What do you need him to be in your life right now?